Hi everybody, welcome to our Thursday night demo here in the getting towards the end of March. We have some fun stuff coming up in April. We're going to be doing hot chocolate bombs with Katie Thayer next week, and then we have Jim Amaral coming from Borealis Bread to make some steamed traditional brown bread using Maine grain, so that's going to be fun. Lots of fun stuff. Tonight we are making one of the easiest and yet very impressive looking meals. This is my prep. I cut some onions, I chopped up some parsley, and I put some spices on my chicken. All I did was take some of the fat off there, so that's ready to go. Oh, before I go on, I'm sorry, I got to do some business here. Wanted to mention that Gift of Bath from Main Street Bath. Those are great little gift certificates that you can use at almost any store downtown here in Bath, including restaurants and services like haircuts and stuff like that. If you buy $50 worth, you can get a $10 free Gift of Bath gift certificate. So spend $50, get $60. Spend $100, get $20, and so on and so forth. So come in and get those at only while supplies last. It was a really generous donation from Jim Day Law Offices, and so we really appreciate that, Jim. And come in and get your free $10 gift certificate, Gift of Bath gift certificate. So those are really great gifts as well. I think that's all my business, so we'll get cooking now. I am going to start, so I got my chicken out of the fridge about a half an hour ago, so it's coming up a little bit, still pretty cold. You're not going to get any diseases by doing this, but if your meat is at room temperature, it's going to cook a lot more evenly and a lot better. I took most of the fat off, left a little bit on there, and then I put my tablespoon of sumac, 2 teaspoons of cardamom and 2 teaspoons of salt. Mix that up, and then I just rubbed it on both sides. You can use, I'm using thighs here, but you can use chicken breasts. You could do pork. If you're vegetarian or vegan, you could do portobello mushrooms or eggplant cutlets or tofu. Eggplant portobello might be a little more flavorful than you want in this. I think I would probably maybe do some roasted tofu or something, but however you want to do it is great. The point is that it can easily be done vegetarian or even vegan. All of the ingredients are vegan. Just instead of chicken stock, use vegetable stock, or just use water or use some wine. So I'm heating up my pan here. I'm using a carbon steel pan, which I'll tell you about shortly. These are awesome pans. You can use them just like you use cast iron. You just get it seasoned kind of naturally, so it's going to be pretty non-stick. And I'm going to heat that up, and then I'm going to add my oil to it. It's been heating here for a little bit, and I just have this on a medium heat. And I'm just going to add whatever I'm supposed to add, a tablespoon of oil or whatever it is. And I'm just going to brown my chicken in here. So you can hear that my pan is nice and hot and sizzly. And you want to try to keep, when you're sauteing meat like this and browning it, you want to try to keep it from touching, the pieces from touching each other. Because if they're right next to each other, you're going to end up steaming. You can maybe see a lot of the steam coming off. If your meat is all really close together, you end up steaming it instead of just browning it nicely on the outside. So you get a much better color and a much better finished product if you try to keep them separated a bit. And I'm just going to wipe off my chickeny hands here. So carbon steel pans, you'll see a lot in restaurants. They are a little bit lighter weight than cast iron. They come like this. These ones that we sell are from a company called Movial. They come from France, and they come with some beeswax on it. You might be able to see here where it's a little thicker. And that is to protect them from getting rusty on their trip from France. And you take that off just by boiling a kettle of water, a big pot of water, and pour it over. Most of the wax will come right off. And then you just start seasoning it, which you do by, putting some oil. So Movial recommends putting a little bit of a neutral oil, so you don't want to use olive oil or something that's going to get kind of rancid. You want a neutral, flavorless oil like canola or some kind of vegetable oil. Grapeseed oil is also good. Put a little bit of that in there, bring it up to a really high heat, then let it cool, throw away that oil, and then do that again, and then just start cooking. You want to cook with a lot of oil at first so that it's cooking onto the pan. And then the key is with cleaning it, and this sticking on the pan is fine, that's going to come off in a few minutes. So when you clean it, what I do at home, I use these pans a lot, and unless I have food really stuck onto it, I don't really wash them very much. I just, when I'm done cooking, I take a paper towel, wipe it out, and then if I do need to, and it just lives on my stove because I use them all the time, but if I do need to really wash it, I would use something not too abrasive, like one of our Euro scrubbies, the little rectangular, colorful guys that we sell, or a brush. You don't want to use anything too abrasive or it'll take the seasoning off. However, that said, seasoning comes off, you just re-season it. So that's really easy. And then you just want to make sure, put it on the stove, get it a little bit hot, and then take a paper towel with some oil on it, again, a neutral oil. Just take a pair of tongs and just rub the oil all over with the paper towel. And then you can just put it away and it's ready to use next time. You will notice that things like a lot of really oniony or tomato, anything that's really acid may take off some of the seasoning. But again, the beautiful thing about these is if your seasoning is ruined, you just re-season it. Whereas with a sprayed-on coated pan, nonstick pan, if your coating is ruined, then you have to throw it away, buy a new one. So we really highly recommend these. Once they're really well seasoned, you'll see that they turn pretty much black, like cast iron. That's what you want them to look like. So they go from this, what they call blue steel, to this blackened. And again, if it comes off, like you can see on this pan a little bit, it's come off a little bit here. So I'm just re-seasoning it and it's going to be just fine. Okay, so I think our chicken is browned enough. And so normally I would just put this aside on a plate because I would put this whole pan in the oven, but our ovens here are a little bit small, so I'm actually going to put them into this nice Dutch oven from Emile Henry. And it's okay that this is a little raw because these are going to finish cooking right in the oven. And that is so much quieter. So, and these little bits of chicken that are cooked on, that's just fine because what we're going to do now is we're going to add our onions. This is like a medium onion. So the only things I chopped again are the onion and the parsley. Everything else is pretty much ready to go. I've got a half a cup of chicken stock. And then I have about a cup of pomegranate molasses. You can buy this at Bath Natural Market. I'm sure they have it at Morning Glory over in Brunswick or whatever store you happen to shop at. Probably have it at most of the grocery stores. So this is just pomegranate juice that is reduced, so it's really thick. It's fairly sour, so I think I put in the recipe, if you don't like things really tart, then you can add a little bit of maple syrup. I wouldn't add too much because you don't really want it sweet. But between the sumac berry powder is very kind of citrusy, tangy. Between the sumac powder and the pomegranate molasses, it's a pretty tangy flavor. The original recipe that I used did not have onion in it. I like the onion. I think it just gives it a little, I don't know, a nice oniony flavor. You may notice if you've been following me that I normally put tons of garlic in things, and I'm not putting any garlic in here. Although there's no reason not to if you love garlic. So I'm going to turn the heat up just a little bit here. So I want to let the onions cook, and I'm going to let this reduce just a little bit. And reducing it helps to intensify the flavor. So like if you're making a demi-glace, which would be like a a beef stock or a veal stock that you reduce, you're getting rid of the water, so to speak. You're getting rid of some of the liquid, but all of the flavor and the other stuff is staying in there. So it gets thicker and it gets really intensely flavorful. I also want to mention that tonight's meal we're doing in conjunction with the Patent Free Library, who has just done a series called The Armchair Traveler, and they had some speakers who biked from China to Italy along the Silk Road, which is really cool. And Gryffon Ridge, one of our favorites here, very kindly donated some spice packets for the people that wanted to participate and make this chicken dish tonight. So Gryffon Ridge gave us some sumac berry powder and some cardamom, which was really great of them, and we really appreciate that. Thank you, Christine. Okay, so this is going to go a little bit further, and while that is getting a little bit reduced, I'm going to just talk quickly about these two wines that we have today, which Joel recommended for this meal. He said it goes really well with something that's a little on the tart side. So we have this Vouvray. It's $22.99. Obviously comes from France. It's a Kermit Lynch suggestion, which means you can't go wrong with it. All of his wines are really good. And then another Kermit. This is a Pinot Donné. That is not Pinot as in P-I-N-O-T, like a Pinot Grigio or a Pinot Noir. It's P-I-N-E-A-U, not to get too French with you. So it's a different grape, Pinot Donné, and this is a red wine, and this is $21.99. So they're both about in the same price range. Another Kermit Lynch choice. Both of those would go really, really nicely with our meal tonight. So, really quick to prep: chop my parsley, chop my onion, fix my chicken, and this is getting pretty well reduced here. My onions, you can see, are getting pretty well cooked. They're kind of limp, and they're getting, well, I would say they were getting kind of transparent, except they're sort of turning red with the pomegranate juice. And I don't know if you can see, it's kind of thickening a little bit here. Probably reduce a little bit more. So if you are doing this at home, you want to let it reduce almost by half. It doesn't have to be quite that much. And probably the more I'm stirring it, the more slowly it's going to go. But it's got a nice simmer going on it. And so if this pan would fit in my oven, I would put the chicken back in here, coat it kind of a little bit, take a spoon and drizzle some of the juices over the chicken. And then this pan goes right in the oven at 350, I think, because that's what I have it set at, 400. And just let it cook for a little bit longer, which is why you don't need to make sure, like you saw that one piece that was still pretty raw in the middle. You don't need to worry about that too much because it's going to cook right in the oven. So in this case, because my pan's too big, I have my chicken in here, and I'm going to pour the sauce over it with the onions and everything. Now, if I were doing this at home and I had a pan that was too big for my oven, I probably would want to make sure that this dish that I'm going to put in the oven, I would want to make sure it was a kind of shallow, because this is going to be such a beautiful presentation when it's done. So I would want to do it on like an oven-proof tray or something where you could really see the dish when you serve it at the table. So this is going to go right in the oven, right here. And I'm going to say probably about 20 minutes, maybe 15, 20 minutes. And I'll set the timer for the first time in my life. So that is all ready to go. And when that comes out of the oven, we're going to sprinkle it with some nice fresh parsley. This is the broadleaf parsley. You can use whatever you find for parsley. And then we have the pomegranate arils, which are the seeds. These were the last on the shelf at Hannaford yesterday. Hopefully they will have more. Pomegranates aren't really in season right now, so we're kind of a little off with that. We should have done this a little earlier in the year. But when you have fresh pomegranates, you can just cut one open and get the seeds from that. But they do, you can find them at most grocers in a little cup like this. It saves you some of the work. So we'll post a picture when it's all done, and you'll see how beautiful it is with the red and the green on top for garnish. And this is, again, really quick. It's been about 15 minutes or so in the oven for 15-20 minutes. I usually serve this with couscous, which is really easy to make. You could serve it with rice. You could just serve it with bread or something like that. But it is really a spectacular looking dish when it's served up, as you will see in a little bit when we post that picture. Again, don't forget gift of bath gift certificates. Buy $50 worth, get $10 free. Great gifts. Mother's Day is coming up. Easter baskets are coming up. If you need to have a little extra gift, they come in $25 increment, $25 or $10 amounts, and you can buy, again, as every $50 you get a free 10. Next week is hot chocolate bombs. That's going to be really fun with Katie Thayer. Brown bread, steamed brown bread with Borealis, Jim Amaral from Borealis Breads. And then we have a bunch of other good fun things coming up in April as well. So if you have any questions, as always, send us an email or post it on Facebook. We're happy to answer questions for you. And I think that's it for tonight, and we'll see you next week.